Hello, EnderSword here again, this time with a Silver League replay sent into me by our Terran player Phantom up here in the top right-hand side of the map, and his opponent for today is going to be Fannanon, which sounds maybe like a 3-year-old child trying to pronounce the word phantom for the first time. We're going to be focusing on the Terran player here today, and I'm going to go back to looking at the fairly small stuff that really adds up into big differences throughout the game. So the first thing I'm going to focus on is the idea that SCVs kind of bring you money. They give you minerals, they give you gas, that's what you use to drive your economy forward. And obviously I'm just trying to say we don't want to be cutting SCVs or stopping worker production at any given time. A lot of people do realize when they've just really stopped their worker production, maybe they get into a fight or they just start producing units and that's all they're paying attention to, and they've absolutely stopped producing for like 5 minutes. But there's the other type where people maybe don't realize that they're doing it. That you just kind of get 2 or 3 second gaps in between your SCV production fairly continuously throughout the game, and it can really hurt you in the long run. You end up just being down 5-10 workers throughout a 15-minute game, and it can really add up to a lot and a lot of economy that you're actually missing out on over your opponent, and you can end up behind in worker count, or you just may be tied, and very often that's the case, that people in the lower leagues may look at the end and say, well, you know, we had the same number of workers too. Yeah, but you could have had like 15, 20 more than that over the course of the game. So we'll take a look as that occurs. Second thing is avoiding crucial supply block moments. So there's certain times in the game, obviously you don't want to be supply blocked at any point, but there's certain times that are a little more critical than others. When you're finishing up a key piece of technology, or when you're about to make a push out, or when you've just started a lot of production, things like that, you don't want to be supply blocking yourself right at those points. Also, if you're going for a 2 barracks opening, you're generally going to want to be putting pressure on, so at least train that Marine, or else doing this quick 2 barracks kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to actually be doing in the first place. The third thing that we're going to look at is the idea of attacking for a purpose and attacking based on actual information that you have. The information may be your own, that you are about to complete a timing. There's a reason that you think now is going to be a good time to go. One of your upgrades is done. You just got a certain amount of production online, something like that. Or it could be based on scouting information of your opponent. You know what they're doing. You kind of know what tech they're going towards. You know that maybe they've just taken another expansion, something of that nature that would indicate that they wouldn't be ready for this attack that's actually going to happen. Or you just want, maybe they're being greedy and you want to force them to make units or something like that. But you want to be attacking for an actual purpose, and you should kind of know what you're getting into when you actually go and do that. So here we do have the 2 barracks build going down, but he's just going to expand behind it. So that's not something that you see a whole lot. It is very common for the Terran player to want to put at least a little pressure on the Protoss. It forces them into making a few units, scares them a bit, maybe stops this Nexus from going down quite so early. He's kind of being a bit... this is a kind of standard, but he's not really getting the units out to back it up. You can see he's just going for a sentry there and then putting 2 gateways. This is relatively undefended. He could go in and certainly be harassing this with 4 Marines available. He probably could have had more than that if he had wanted. This barracks again was silent for a little while and could have gotten an extra Marine out. Enough to at least annoy the Protoss player, kind of harass this Nexus, maybe not really push up the ramp, but this is relatively undefended right now. So you want to be kind of staying on top of your opponent and forcing his hand. The Stalker is certainly doing that to the Terran player, just wants to see that there's defenses there, know what's going on, know that there's an expansion behind there, and so on. So you do want to be kind of poking at your opponent throughout the course of the game, both to force them into a defensive position and to actually get information for yourself. So he's going, the 3 racks is down, going for a factory here, but his first tech choice is going to be to get combat shields. Against the Protoss, you're generally going to want the Stim Pack or the Concussive Shell first. It just allows you to take map control a lot more. The initial disadvantage that you're kind of at is that a Stalker is faster than your army initially. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage or anything, and if it actually gets into an engagement with these Marauders, it's certainly dead meat, but it can always run away. By getting Stim or getting Concussive Shells prior to the Combat Shield, you can actually afford to move out onto the map, take these towers yourself, have some idea what's going on, and again, just pose a threat to the Protoss player throughout the course of the game. He knows that you could just stim in at any point. You could pick a unit off at any point. It certainly limits his scouting options and things that he could do on the map, whereas the combat shields for the Marine just not really necessary, particularly since he's then going fairly heavy Marauder after that. We've got 2 tech labs there, and the idea is not to go mass Marine or anything, so why that? Kind of placing these, I like this just to get kind of vision around your own base. Be strategically using these buildings like that. Supply depots just kind of all over the place to spot in certain areas where maybe he's going to drop a warp prism in, or a DT may come flying in or something like that. And just, you're going to be aware that that gets dropped into your base, and it may just give you a little bit of an edge. Switching these over, he's obviously going for to get some medevacs out, clearly. I love this little BlizzCon 2011 thing. That's kind of neat. I don't think I've actually seen that before, but of course that's his decal for attending. Too bad there won't actually be one this year. And right now is when a few of the things that I mentioned are actually happening. We're not building SCVs here. We've hit a very crucial supply block, and Phantom is moving out with no actual idea what's going on. So he's kind of hitting off all 3 parts of my checklist. Nothing's being built because he's going to be focused on this army. The supply is such that this is a really crucial moment. You're obviously moving out, and you've just got kind of all this production online. Really everything's up and running pretty well, but he can't actually rally anything forward to be supporting this attack, because the supply is consumed basically as soon as he's putting supply depots down, just putting him at a disadvantage. There's no real reason that he's attacking now. He doesn't have a lot of information. He doesn't really know if he's ahead or behind, and they're relatively equal, if not the Protoss player being ahead at this point. So he's kind of coming in blindly. Even the factory here, just slowly moving with the army, you kind of want that out in front to be scouting a bit. It would have been nice to maybe see scans going down. He does have some energy to do that, maybe just get an idea of what's actually there. But just kind of attacking him blind like that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He goes for a potential drop, but he just wasn't even aware that the entire army was up there anyway. That could have been disastrous if he didn't actually pull it back in time. If that had gotten picked off, if there was maybe a High Templar in there or something like that. He just doesn't really have any idea what's going on. Doesn't know. At this point, there certainly could have been Colossus out on the field as opposed to 2 Immortals out on the field. And this army just isn't really designed to deal with anything like that with no Viking support. So he does end up okay here, picking a few units up off the high ground, using the high ground to his advantage, or the low ground to his advantage, because these Zealots are going to have to run all the way around. However, I don't like the fact that he's actually closed into a close enough range that the Zealots can fire back. But overall, doing pretty well here. He's actually kind of pulled the supply even when he moved into the area, was actually behind. And again, when the army's coming out, stimming back out. So I do like the play in general here. But back at home, we can see that the orbitals just aren't producing. These bases aren't saturated. This one's kind of saturated. It's not absolutely max, but it's kind of at that efficient saturation point. This one's not at all, and this expansion, just no attention is being paid to it. So make sure that you're not just kind of losing your macro back home when you're doing this. Both players letting their money get a little out of control. They're not continuing on with adding production facilities. Luckily there he does do one there now. tech labs going down. Would have been nice maybe to just see Marines coming out as opposed to that investment, which is going to delay it a fair bit. That's obviously just a decision you'll make, but given that this could be the killing push, it would be nice to just reinforce as opposed to really delaying that too much and let your new production take that on. Letting his forces get split up here a bit, but ends up taking this all the way down. The Protoss just has kind of lost that mass. He's lost any Zealot support. If he had still had some Zealot support to kind of get behind that Colossus, things could have been a lot different, but he was just kind of going up and down the ramp, never getting a good push against his opponent, and the Terran is able to move in. I do like the move of just going right into the main base as opposed to sniping that Nexus off. He kind of knows that that's forfeit anyway. By getting on top of these facilities, he can certainly just put an end to the resistance there. So overall, he does pull out the game, but if the Protoss player had actually spent all his money, it certainly could have swung back the other way. If his positioning was a bit better with the Colossus actually behind his army, it would have been harder for the Terran to just stem in and pick that off. And obviously, if he hadn't lost so many of the Zealots kiting there, it would have been hard for him to just stem forward and take that out. We can see a few, these are being rallied up, a few missed rally points here. We've got uneven distribution of the SCVs. That one's actually fine, but we just don't have enough here. There's no real saturation. It's not really mining out of this one at all. He's just kind of lost focus on that as he moved in and decided that his attack was going to win. Try and never get in the mindset that your attack is just going to win. Always be reinforcing, always be developing your economy, everything like that. You never know what's going to happen. Maybe he drops a bunch of, he just can warp in a bunch of DTs or something and just really kind of shut down this attack, and the game may continue on. Granted, with the Protoss player at a big disadvantage, but there are things that could happen that could actually repel this. You can see the medevacs are basically out of energy and everything, but we're not producing any more of those at home either, and so on. So just never try and act like the game is actually won until the person actually has typed GG out, or you're trying to do something bad-mannered to them. So to recap that, you want to be constantly making those workers over the course of the game. Only to have 39 SCVs at 15 minutes, just not really good at all. That has to be in the 60s at least at this point in the game, and all three bases should really be saturated at this point. Money was obviously no limitation to making the SCVs or even production, but really you could afford a ton more starports, barracks, factories, things all over the place that are just ramping you up. And second thing is obviously to just make sure that you are constantly trying to keep track of what the actual opponent is doing. Don't just get tunnel vision on what you yourself are doing. If you're going to make a push out, make sure that you are doing it for a reason. I know that my opponent is doing this, or that I know he is not prepared for this type of thing. Do it based on information and not just a time that you feel like you should do it, and you'll find that the results are a lot better. So thanks for watching, guys, and Phantom, thanks for sending this one in. I've sat on it for a couple weeks. I haven't had time recently. Anyone that likes this, please subscribe, hit like, whatever, and thanks for watching, guys.